What was the morning like? Where were you when you heard the news?
Yeah. Well, I got a phone call in October from Kobe and his team, and they had this vision of having some what they call it the Mamba Cup, and this would be AAU girls basketball teams from around the country that would go around from city to city and play in this tournament in different locations. In the end, it would end up and the best records will play against each other. So this was the first of the Mamba Cup series. We were invited to LA in January, and it was a couple other club teams from Dallas, and then as well as my team and my daughter's team. And we get there the night before. Kobe's team was playing in the opening game. I shook his hand, I hugged him, told him hello, and I sat courtside and watched him as he coached his daughter. This is my first time watching him and his daughter at the same time on the court in a competitive environment. And it was just awesome. The way he coached her, the way she looked like him, with her mannerisms, how she played the game, how she talked to her teammates. It was just unreal to watch, knowing that I was really scouting because the next morning he and I were to face off. And so he kind of gave me that look like, yeah, it's on tomorrow. And, when tomorrow came, I never got to see him again. And, for me, it was just an eerie feeling, man. It was an eerie morning. The clouds were, the fog was low as I drove a 15-passenger van from the hotel to the gym, got there about 9:30. We were to play them at 11 a.m. And the fog was low. Like you couldn't see 2 or 3 cars ahead of you. And it was just an eerie feeling. Got a message on my phone right as I pulled the van up to let the girls out. And it was from my wife that said, "Did you see this?" And they had the message on TMZ, and it just said Kobe died in a helicopter crash. And for me in that moment, I was like, well, you see stuff like that all the time. This can't be real. And as I walked in the gym, the games were still going on. So nobody had a clue. I literally walked through the first court and the game was going on. I walked through the middle of the court as the game was going on and just told everybody, stop the game. Kobe is passed. And the ref looked at me. He was like, are you serious? And then you heard some screams from up top of the Mamba Academy. And it was just the eeriest feeling. Everybody converged onto one main court. It was a group prayer with all the athletes, all the parents, all the coaches. And one gentleman said some beautiful words. But literally after that, the gym was just complete silence. It's one of the eeriest feelings I've ever had as a human being on this earth. And to lose someone, that you respected, that you faced off against so many times and that you had just seen the day before and then he wasn't there anymore. It was just hard. And to mention I had 13-year-old girls, my daughter, my family, like they were there to see him. Like they never got that opportunity to shake his hand, to get a photo. And, I just felt bad. Still have moments to this day where you think like, why was I there? Like, why was I there in that moment? And the only reason why I was there is because he had called for us to be.
So, you found out your wife obviously texted you the news. How did you break, like, at that moment, I mean, how did you break the news to your daughter?
Yeah, man, I don't directly recall how I did it, but it was almost like, man, there's no more games. Like, Kobe's gone. I remember those exact words. And they're looking at me, and then what happened when our parent moms broke down in tears first. Like, the girls didn't even realize what I was saying, but when they seen the mother break down in tears, it crushed them. And I think, they didn't even want to get on the plane and fly back to Texas. Like the fear of flying at that point, they couldn't believe it. They thought something may have happened to them.
I was just about to ask you, so your team was based in Texas?
Yes, sir.
And what was the name of your team?
The Lady Jets.
And what was the name of Kobe's team?
I believe they were Mamba. I think it was just Mamba.
And then what's your daughter's name?
Jada Terry.
Can you spell her name for me?
Jaida.
Cool. And then how old was that team? The girls team?
13. So they were in 7th grade, 8th grade.
So what was, at that point, it sounded like you had a cordial, more of a relationship with Kobe than you did
Oh,
with Jordan. I mean, how much did you talk? What was your relationship like?
no, our relationship was good. I mean, obviously, when you play 19 years and, Kobe played like 17, 18 years, I mean, there were so many battles. Being in the Western Conference, there was just so many battles that he and I faced off. And, every time it was just a mutual respect. One, because of the competitors we were, but also because of what we were able to accomplish on the floor. Now, I'm not by any means putting myself in Kobe's category of stardom, but there was a respect level there. And he was just a good guy. I mean, I looked at a picture the other day. I was went and played for Boston for a season, and he took a picture with myself and my father. My father had never got a picture with him, and it just like, I mean, my father been around all kind of stars, but Kobe was just his guy. And for him to take the time and the moment to share a moment with my father and take that picture in that moment is like a lifetime lasting memory for me. And Kobe was just that type of dude. He was a fierce competitor on the court, but off the court and after the battles, like he was just a regular human being, and he was genuine.
You know what amazed me about him in retirement? He actually seemed happy. I mean, I think of Jordan,
Yeah.
and one of the things I always felt bad about, and a lot of other athletes, they never seem content. They seem like they miss it. They seem like and with
Mm-hmm.
him, it was like he went away and he's still around basketball, but now he's finding his purpose with his daughter. I mean, how did he change in retirement?
Yeah. He, like all of us, are basketball lifers, so we'll be around the game in some way, shape, or form. But I think for him, it was finally a time where he could pour back into the game, but he didn't have to be in the game, and then to be able to do it with your daughter and then kind of see her growth and development and see the characteristics that were in him, that was in her, like that had to just be the ultimate feeling for a father. One thing about father and son, and I don't have any, but I know the relationship. But father and daughter relationship is one that is like, there's nothing that can separate, the two. And it's just a special relationship. And I can see that in him. And I think that's what kind of gave him peace at the end of the day after his career, was that his relationship with him and his daughters, to me, is what gave him the peace.
Before we go, can you give me one good Kobe Bryant in-game story where you're like,
Oh
this
man,
this guy's different, or
no, I got a classic,
all right,
classic. And so we're in Atlanta, and I believe it's 2000, after their first championship, had to be
that's
2000, 2001.
2001. Yeah.
Yep. And we're in Atlanta. And, I knew it was a big game. Lakers in town. I mean, we come out for warm-ups. They introduce us. Dead silence. You can hear crickets. They introduce the Lakers. The crowd's going crazy. We're like, oh my God, is this a road game or a home game? So I go off, man. I had a career high. I had 36 points that night. And, several of my baskets were on Kobe. And so, we only played the West Coast teams twice in a season. So the following season, they win again. They're the champs. They come back to Atlanta. And right before tip-off, Kobe just walks right up to me. It wasn't no, what's up? How you doing? How's the fam? Like, he said, I don't forget. And I kind of looked at him like, man, still talking about. And for 2 quarters, he literally torched me. He had 25 points in 2 quarters, and I had 4 fouls. Why the coach still had me guarding him after the 15th point was a mystery to me, but he torched me. And he was just like, I don't forget. And it always resonates to me, like, he was that type of killer. Like, he really held on to that. My little Atlanta Hawks team was no threat to him or the Lakers, and he held on that for a whole year. And he was like, I don't forget. But I went back and watched that game a couple summers ago on VHS, popped it in the TV, and they really should have beat us by 50, but they had no interest in that game that night. But for him, it was one of his performances where he wasn't quite himself that night, and I got the better of him. But he held on to that, and that next year, it wasn't even close.
It's a shame because at this point, when people think of him, I feel like there's a hint of sadness. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with his
No,
legacy, knowing that it didn't end the way that we thought it would?
no, it didn't. But you understood what he meant to basketball when he passed, right? Like, it's crazy how it takes for a life-changing, life-altering event for people to really realize what somebody's impact on the world was. And Kobe was that type of figure. Um, He'll go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But he was just an even better person. And, to know him on that type of level, words can't really describe it, but, he meant a lot, to the sport. He meant a lot to a lot of people that grew up Laker fans, that just grew up Kobe Bryant fans. They appreciated the way he played the game. Like, he always played the game like it was his last. And that's kind of something that I preach to the guys that I coach. It's like, play every game like it's your last. You don't know. Like, you're not guaranteed another game, another shot, another possession. So you want to play every game like it is your last. And I think, that is truly the Mamba mentality.